want you to imagine you're sitting at your desk, right? Coffee in hand.
Mm-hmm.
You're just getting ready to start the day, check your emails, and suddenly every single screen goes black.
Yeah, totally dark.
Not just your computer. I mean, the VoIP phones on your desk,
Right.
the payment processing systems on the warehouse floor, everything.
Right.
The inventory trackers, the communication channels connecting your remote teams, just poof, gone.
Which is terrifying.
It really is. So we're opening today's deep dive with this direct, honestly kind of chilling question from our source materials.
Okay.
If your organization's critical systems went offline tomorrow, like completely offline, how long could the business actually continue operating?
Oh man, I mean, it is the ultimate nightmare scenario for any executive, right?
Yeah.
And what makes that question so incredibly difficult to answer today, as opposed to maybe 10 or 15 years ago, is just the sheer density of our digital infrastructure. I mean, we are no longer talking about a localized power outage or a single server room getting flooded.
Yeah, somebody spilling coffee on a mainframe or whatever.
Exactly. It's not that anymore. We are navigating this landscape of hyper interconnected digital systems, complex cloud services, global supply chains that span the entire planet. It's massive.
It is. And our mission today is to unpack this stack of corporate strategy white papers, some IT postmortem reports from recent global outages, and the official deeply technical guidelines for the ISO 22301 standard.
Which sounds dry, but I promise it's not.
It's really not. The goal here is to understand why modern business continuity is a massive strategic organizational capability. It's absolutely not just an IT task.
No, not at all.
It's the difference between a business that is critically vulnerable and one that is truly resilient.
Right. And to grasp that difference, we have to look at the reality of modern infrastructure. The technologies driving efficiency today, like cloud computing, automated logistics, API integrations,
Yeah.
they've simultaneously introduced these unprecedented levels of systemic risk. We've basically built massive efficiencies by stripping away redundancies.
Right, because redundancies cost money.
Exactly. It's leaner, but it's meaner when it fails.
The way I see it, the modern organization feels like a massive digital house of cards.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Right. It's entirely built on third-party technological providers and external telecommunications networks. And if just one card near the bottom slips, the whole structure shudders.
Yeah, the house of cards visual really captures the fragility. But a more accurate way to look at the architecture, especially from a systems perspective, is like a modern power grid.
Okay, a power grid. I like that.
Yeah, because in a grid, energy flows through countless nodes, transformers, substations, right?
Right.
If a major transformer blows, the system is designed to route around it. But if a critical junction fails,
The blackout.
you get a cascading blackout across multiple states. And that is exactly what happens in modern business.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, let's look at a scenario drawn from the postmortem reports in our sources.
Yeah, let's do it.
So say a critical third-party cloud provider, one that hosts the logistics software for a major shipping port, goes dark.
Right.
Due to a targeted ransomware attack.
Which happens all the time.
All the time.
So the immediate thought is, okay, the port just stops loading ships for a few hours, right?
Right, but it goes much deeper and much faster than that because everything is tied to real-time data feeds, right? The moment that software drops, the automated cranes stop moving.
Wow.
But simultaneously, the trucking companies waiting to pick up the freight, well, they lose their digital manifests. So thousands of trucks just bottlenecks on the highway.
They literally don't know what box to pick up.
Exactly. And then the regional retail distribution centers, which rely on, just-in-time inventory algorithms.
Yeah, that lean supply chain again.
Right. They see a break in the data chain and they automatically halt their outbound shipments. So within 12 hours, a software glitch in one specific coastal port has caused empty shelves in a grocery store 1,000 miles away.
That is wild. And even if you aren't, a CEO managing a supply chain, this matters to you as a consumer.
Oh, totally.
I mean, when you can't access your bank funds on a random Tuesday afternoon, or you're sitting on the tarmac because an airline's crew scheduling software had a glitch.
Which we've all experienced.
Right. You're experiencing the fallout of these exact cascading failures. The dependencies are just invisible until they break.
Which brings us to, honestly, the most dangerous assumption an organization can make.
Okay, let me unpack this then and play devil's advocate here.
Sure.
Because as someone who looks at organizational risk, I know companies spend tens of millions of dollars on their tech infrastructure.
Oh, huge budgets.
Right. So if I'm a business leader listening to this, I'm thinking, well, I know this is a risk. That's why I have a massive IT budget. Doesn't my IT department already have a disaster recovery plan for this?
Right.
Like, if we get hit by ransomware, don't they just restore everything from a secure offsite backup server and we just get back to work?
See, the problem with that assumption is that it confuses restoring a hard drive with running a company.
Hmm.
There is a fundamental distinction between IT disaster recovery and true business continuity.
Okay, break that down for me.
So, IT disaster recovery is entirely focused on the technology.
Right.
It's about the servers, the data backups, the network switches, getting the digital lights back on, basically.
Which is necessary. But you're saying it's insufficient.
Exactly. Think of IT disaster recovery as the spare tire in the trunk of your car.
Okay.
If you get a flat, that spare tire is absolutely critical. You need it.
Yeah.
But having a spare tire doesn't tell you how you're going to get your passengers to the airport on time.
Right.
It doesn't reschedule your missed flight, and it definitely doesn't feed the kids sitting in the back seat while you're stuck on the side of the highway for 3 hours.
That is a great way to put it.
Yeah.
So, business continuity is the macro strategy of ensuring the trip itself doesn't end in disaster, regardless of what happens to the car.
Yeah.
So, if we go back to that ransomware example, let's say the IT department does its job perfectly. They're rock stars.
Yep.
They isolate the malware, they begin restoring the data from the backup servers.
Yeah.
But the timeline for that recovery is, say, 48 hours.
Right, which is actually a pretty fast turnaround in a major breach.
True.
Ooh.
But those 48 hours, that is the exact gap where businesses die.
Yes.
While IT is fixing the engine, the broader organizational view has to take over. I mean, how do you process weekly payroll if the HR system is locked down?
You can't.
Right. How do your warehouse workers know what to pack and ship if the digital manifest is gone?
Right. Do they use pen and paper?
Exactly. Do they use pen and paper? Do they have the physical forms printed out anywhere? Have they even seen a physical form?
Probably not.
And how do you communicate with the press and your stakeholders to prevent a stock price collapse? Business continuity is the overarching architecture that answers those questions.
And that's exactly it. So if fixing the servers isn't enough, then who is responsible for the rest of the business? How do you actually map out those non-IT dependencies before they break down?
That is the big question.
Right. And that gap between the IT department's capabilities and the company's survival is where our sources introduce a really specific architectural blueprint.
The ISO 22301 standard.
Yes, ISO 22301. It is the international standard for building a business continuity management system, or a BCMS.
He's got it.
And the keyword there is system.
Okay.
Historically, companies treated disaster preparedness as a one-off project.
Oh yeah, I've seen this.
They'd hire a consultant, write a massive, like 300-page continuity
Just
document.
in a nice binder.
Yep. Put it in a binder and leave it on a shelf to gather dust until the auditors came around.
Okay, I have to be honest here. I'm looking at this ISO framework, and my immediate thought, as someone who deals with operational risk, is that this looks like a bureaucratic nightmare.
Oh, it definitely can look like that.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
mapping out every single dependency, creating an international standard management system. Doesn't that just slow a nimble company down? If I'm a CEO, why do I want to invest capital into a compliance standard that doesn't actually generate any revenue?
Well, it only becomes a bureaucratic nightmare if you treat it as just a compliance checklist.
Okay.
ISO 22301 is designed as a continuous operational architecture. It forces an organization to transition from like reactive scrambling to proactive design.
Proactive design.
Yeah. And the mechanism it uses to do that, which is what completely justifies the investment, is the business impact analysis, or the BIA.
The BIA.
Right.
Now, this was fascinating in the reading.
The BIA then forces you to establish the RTO.
The recovery time objective.
Right, recovery time objective. This is your target time to get that specific system back up and running. And critically, it has to be shorter than your maximum tolerable disruption.
That makes sense.
So if the payment gateway will kill the company in 15 minutes, your RTO might be 5 minutes.
Which completely flips the conversation with the IT department.
It really does.
Instead of IT telling the business, hey, we'll get the servers up when we get them up.
Yeah, just open a ticket.
Right, just open a ticket.
Yeah.
Instead of that, the business is dictating to IT, look, we've done the analysis, and if this specific gateway isn't up in 5 minutes, the company folds. So build the architecture to guarantee a 5-minute recovery.
Yes, you're giving them a business mandate. And then on top of that, the BIA introduces the RPO.
Too many acronyms. What's the RPO?
I know. It's the Recovery Point Objective.
Okay.
This one measures data loss.
Ah.
So if your database crashes, how much historical data can you afford to lose when you finally restore from a backup? Like, can you afford to lose the last 24 hours of customer transactions? Or do you need it backed up to the microsecond?
That is a huge distinction. I mean, if I lose 24 hours of marketing blog drafts, I'm annoyed. I'll have to rewrite them.
Right, a minor headache.
But if a bank loses 24 hours of wire transfer data, the institution collapses.
Completely collapses. So the ISO 22301 framework takes all of these metrics, the MTPD, the RTO, the RPO,
Yep.
and uses them to justify resources. That is why it isn't just bureaucracy. It tells the C-suite exactly where to spend their money.
Right.
You don't build redundant multi-million-dollar cloud backups for the employee newsletter.
Right.
You build it for the payment gateway.
So the standard forces a logical allocation of resources based on actual existential risk.
Yes.
Rather than just throwing money at IT and hoping they buy the right servers.
Exactly. And it goes through a continuous cycle known as Plan, Do, Check, Act.
Okay.
You plan by assessing risks and doing the BIA. You do by implementing strategies. Maybe you diversify your suppliers or build alternative communication channels.
Right.
You check by monitoring the system's effectiveness. And you act by continually improving it based on what you learn. It's a living loop.
Which answers my earlier question about the ROI.
Yeah.
Implementing this standard guarantees a faster, more structured response to incidents because the foundational decisions were already made during the BIA process.
You're not guessing.
Right? You aren't standing in the boardroom arguing about what to say while the building is literally burning.
Exactly. And beyond the operational efficiency, the strategic benefits are massive.
How so?
Well, we're seeing increasingly strict regulatory requirements regarding data protection and uptime across the globe.
Oh, for sure. Europe especially.
Yeah, GDPR and things like that. Complying with ISO 23001 provides a defensible posture. It proves to regulators, investors, and customers that you have performed your due diligence.
That makes total sense. But, yet for all this talk about highly structured methodologies, precise recovery objectives, redundant cloud architectures,
Yeah.
the source materials highlight this massive vulnerability.
Oh, here we go.
Right, you can have the most robust ISO 22301 framework in the world, perfectly calculated recovery time objectives, flawless technology backups. But when the system actually goes dark, the ultimate breaking point is human behavior.
Every single time.
Why is that?
Because the psychology of a crisis is the one variable technology just cannot account for.
Yeah.
A continuity plan is essentially a dense set of instructions.
Right.
But when an unexpected event occurs, a massive cyber attack, a natural disaster, a supply chain collapse, the people who have to actually read and execute those instructions are experiencing severe cognitive overload, panic, confusion.
Right, they're not calmly flipping to page 42 of the binder.
No, they're freaking out.
So if they haven't internalized their specific roles before the disaster, they'll either freeze up completely or make erratic, unauthorized decisions that actually compound the crisis.
Exactly. The sources stress that an organization can have perfect documentation and world-class servers, but if the middle managers and the frontline workers don't know how to execute manual workarounds when the screens go black, the entire system still collapses.
Wow.
And this is where leadership commitment comes into play.
Right.
If the executive team treats business continuity as just an annoying annual compliance seminar,
Which a lot of them do.
which they do, the employees will treat it the exact same way.
It requires embedding resilience into the company culture itself.
Yes.
Everyone needs to know exactly what their alternative job is when the normal tools aren't working. But, training takes time, and time is money. Running massive company-wide disaster drills sounds incredibly disruptive to daily operations. How do organizations actually bridge the gap between a written plan and human execution without grinding their daily work to a total halt?
Well, you don't start by pulling the fire alarm and shutting down the live servers.
Okay, good. That would be bad.
That would be very bad.
You start with tabletop exercises.
Tabletop exercises?
Yeah. You put the key decision makers in a room, you present them with a simulated scenario, like a major vendor going bankrupt overnight,
Okay.
and you force them to talk through their responses based on the continuity
It
plan.
was the fire department analogy again.
Yeah, exactly.
You wouldn't want a fire crew's very first practice run with the heavy hoses and the aerial ladders to be during an actual 5 alarm fire in a crowded apartment building.
No, you want them to know what they're doing.
Right. You practice at the station in a controlled environment so that muscle memory takes over when the environment becomes actually dangerous. Exactly. Tabletop exercises build that organizational muscle memory. And as maturity grows, you move to functional testing.
What's functional testing?
That's where you actually fail over certain systems, like offline, to see if the backups really work and if the staff actually knows how to access them.
Uh-huh.
Testing is where you discover the gaps in your logic.
Like discovering that your backup secure messaging app requires an authentication code sent to the company email system.
Which is currently down. Yes.
That's a classic one.
It really is. And finding that out during a tabletop drill is a super easy fix.
Right.
But finding that out during a catastrophic ransomware attack is a massive organizational failure that will absolutely make headlines.
For sure.
Training and exercising turn a theoretical document into actual resilience.
Right.
You know, a plan that hasn't been tested is nothing more than a hypothesis.
A hypothesis. That's a great way to put it. So to bring all these pieces together, we started by looking at a highly fragile digital landscape where one fallen server or compromised vendor can cascade into a global operational failure. And we've moved from acknowledging those deep vulnerabilities to realizing that simply throwing a larger budget at the IT department's disaster recovery plan is not going to save the overarching business.
Not even close. We have to adopt a macro level architecture.
Right.
Using frameworks like ISO 22301 allows an organization to build a living, breathing system. By utilizing tools like the business impact analysis, companies can proactively identify their most critical arteries.
The triage.
Exactly. They can set hard metrics for recovery and allocate resources efficiently.
And finally, we have to recognize that plans don't execute themselves.
Never.
We have to empower, train, and test the actual human beings who will be steering the ship through the storm. The core takeaway from these white papers and guidelines is that business continuity isn't about predicting the future or stopping every possible disaster.
Because you can't.
You just can't. It's about building the organizational capability to respond effectively and strategically when disruption inevitably occurs.
Right. Because in a connected world, resilience is no longer optional.
It's just reality.
It is. But, you know, if we look at where this is all heading, the sources point to a really fascinating future trend.
Oh, I like this part.
We've established that true business continuity offers a massive competitive advantage, right?
Yeah.
If your competitors go offline during a regional disruption and you remain operational, you don't just survive, you capture their market share.
People are going to go where the service works.
Exactly. Which raises a really provocative question about the future of corporate transparency.
Right.
Historically, internal disaster preparedness has been this closely guarded back office secret. Like, nobody shares their plans.
Yeah, you don't broadcast your vulnerability.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But as global supply chains become even more intertwined, your vendor's vulnerability is your vulnerability.
Absolutely.
So we are likely approaching an era where consumers, and especially B2B partners, publicly demand to see an organization's resilience score before they sign a contract or integrate their data.
A resilience score, like a
Yeah.
credit score, but for organizational disaster preparedness.
Exactly. If you can definitively prove through transparent ISO 22301 certification and public testing metrics that your operations will not cascade into failure when the rest of the industry does,
Yeah.
that might soon become a company's most valuable marketing tool.
A metric of verified trust in a fragile digital world.
Beautifully said.